Minecraft is too easy. I've dedicated a whole video to this topic, so if you haven't watched that, I highly recommend it. But to summarise, surviving in Minecraft's survival mode, particularly on the hardest difficulty, hardcore, is far too easy. In this video, I'll be detailing my solution to this problem. However, before I begin, there is a very quick and simple alternative solution that would work as well. Rename the survival mode to Adventure, Conquest, or Explorer. This would completely change the mindset of players diving into a new world, and would eradicate any thoughts about surviving. In doing so, this would enable Minecraft to effectively move on from the idea of creating a survival experience, and maybe this would be a good decision. However, for those craving a mode that challenges us to survive in the world of Minecraft, well, here's the idea. Let's start by introducing you to The Long Dark, which in my opinion is one of the best survival games on the market today. The premise: a mysterious geomagnetic storm has crash-landed your plane deep into the Canadian wilderness. You have to battle the freezing cold, fatigue, hunger, thirst, and deadly wildlife. No matter what difficulty you play on, permadeath is always enabled, meaning one mistake can result in the end of a playthrough, leading you to truly play to survive. The game has many mechanics and features that I think would work well in Minecraft. I have to make one thing clear, however: any changes or additions I suggest here would only apply to the hardcore mode of Minecraft. We don't want to ruin the simple experience for the average Minecraft player who just wants to chill and fish for 12 hours. With that out of the way, let's talk about temperature. In the Long Dark, your number one enemy is the cold. Rarely will you step out into the snow to find that the temperature is above freezing, and without proper clothing, you will begin to get colder, eventually leading to hypothermia. Of course, most Minecraft biomes have temperate climates, and so the weather here would be comfortable. However, I want to make my first suggestion here, which is that once nightfall sets in, the temperature will drop, and the player's health over time will be affected if they are out in the open for too long. Players can prevent their health from degrading if they enter a cave, a structure, or they have decent enough armor so that they are nice and cozy. Caves will provide small protection. Structures that have a size bigger than 3x3 blocks would give better protection depending on the material used to create said structure. And finally, the better the armor, the warmer the player feels. Each biome would have a different climate with different weather systems, and extreme biomes such as deserts or tundras would have unique characteristics. Wearing armor in deserts for too long would result in the player's health also being affected due to overheating, and tundras would be even deadlier to survive in due to their abrupt changes in temperature. Right now, Minecraft simply has sunny, rainy, and snowy weather, and this could be expanded upon to include weather such as fog, hail, and even storms, each of which would affect the temperature and how the player survives in the world. Next up is hunger. In the Long Dark, this is a major concern, as on harder difficulties, the chance of finding preserved food such as condensed milk or tomato soup is quite low, and therefore food must be gathered or hunted. Minecraft already has these systems in place. We farm crops and we hunt animals. Unfortunately, in its current state, obtaining food in Minecraft is just too easy. Villages provide copious amounts of seeds, and animals such as cows, pigs, sheep, and chickens are in good supply. I'll cover villages soon, but first we need to implement the concept of crops failing, or even suffering from a disease that could spread to all nearby crops. The chance of earning more seeds from harvesting crops would also be reduced, and weather and climate would play a role here too. Different crops will need different climates and amounts of rainfall, and certain weather systems may destroy your crops altogether. Secondly, we need to ensure killing animals is a tougher challenge. We'll reduce the number of passive animals in game and will also introduce aggressive mobs such as bears, snakes, tigers, etc. Eventually these could be killed for good rewards, but to begin they are above the player in the food chain and very hostile. Breeding animals will be much more difficult, as you won't be able to shove 20 cows into a 4x4 square anymore. Different animals will need different amounts of space to live in, and you'll need to feed these animals to ensure they don't die. Because of that, breeding will be up to chance, though encouraged if you have happy and healthy livestock. As well as that, instead of a mob dropping raw meat, their body will simply lay dead on the ground, and the player will have to harvest the meat, which may take an hour or two. Time will be simulated for this, and we won't actually see any harvesting. This is still a kid's game after all. And side note, fishing will take much longer, and sometimes you won't get any fish at all. Since I mentioned villages, I may as well cover them now. They will act as normal, except for one small change. At first, you are not allowed to enter a village. Iron golems will prevent this, and you are only granted access if you take control of the nearest pillager outpost. We'll spawn one within 1000 blocks of every village, and the player will be given directions by the villagers. This will prevent the player from scavenging through a village on day 1 and benefiting from the food and any other loot that they might find. Those items will have to be earned. It's worth noting that villagers, raids, etc. will all stay the same. However, I'm going to suggest we remove an item, the Totem of Undying. I find it hilarious that this can be earned in a permadeath mode such as hardcore, rendering death meaningless. Players won't have such comfort in this hypothetical mode. The next aspect to cover is loot. In the Long Dark, this depends on difficulty, but generally speaking, anything that can be crafted by the player is usually in low supply. This includes items such as knives, hatchets, and clothing. Encouraging players to craft these items themselves using the environment around them. In Minecraft, we'll make similar changes. Any item that can be directly crafted by the player, such as iron, gold, or armor, will be in very low supply whilst looting chests. However, any items that cannot be crafted by the player will still be in normal supply whilst looting. Because the Long Dark is set in the Canadian wilderness, the environment in which the player survives reflects this. Wide open frozen lakes, daunting cliff edges, and impassable terrain. Of course, in Minecraft, you can just build over or mine through any terrain that gets in your way, but we still want to make traversing biomes more difficult than it currently is. Whilst we can't replicate the detail of the Long Dark world, we can introduce new geographical features such as steep mountains, endless valleys, and long rolling hills. Effectively, we want more realistic terrain, and this would also be in conjunction with larger biomes, with certain biomes leading into other suitable biomes. For example, a desert and snow biome cannot be connected. Fatigue in the Long Dark is a silent killer. Your player needs a certain amount of sleep per day, and you will become more tired if your inventory is heavy, or you walk or even sprint for a long period of time. Speaking of inventory, we could have the option of a limited inventory that can be upgraded like a backpack, allowing the carrying of more items. Perhaps the aforementioned mobs, such as bears, tigers, etc., could drop hides that could be crafted into upgrades. Currently in Minecraft, if you don't sleep for a while, you will be haunted by phantoms. But I don't think this is enough. Like in the Long Dark, the player will have a fatigue meter, which will decrease faster based on activity. The caveat for being very tired: the player will not have enough energy to mine blocks, and after a while, the player won't even be able to place blocks. Now, there is a problem here. Right now, the player needs to kill 3 sheep in order to obtain a bed, and I don't think this would work in this hypothetical mode because obtaining a bed would prove to be much harder, especially on the first night. So we're going to introduce a new item, a bedroll. Craftable with 1 piece of wool, this will have the same characteristics as a bed, except sleeping on a bedroll will only refill the fatigue bar to half full, and it won't provide the same warmth bonus as a proper bed. For ages now, the Minecraft community has conjured up new mobs, minerals, food, etc. that could be introduced to Minecraft. And whilst I'd love to discuss some of these excellent ideas, it would take hours to talk about their implementation, uses, and how they impact the world. Instead, I just want to mention some smaller changes I would introduce that I think would help create a challenging survival experience. Some of which include coal and iron won't spawn on the surface, instead spawning at least 10 blocks below ground. Iron itself will be rarer and found in smaller amounts. A scent system will be added. Carrying raw meat can attract nearby predators. Players have the chance to spawn at any time of day during any time of weather. The chance of mobs dropping their armor is reduced. Cows have a guaranteed chance to drop leather, but the amount will always be 1. The better the armor, the slower the player will be able to sprint. The closer you get to bedrock, the warmer the temperature will be. All in all, these changes will hopefully make surviving in hardcore Minecraft a more grounded and challenging experience. I understand that Minecraft is potentially moving on from its survival roots, instead focusing more on the late game, but maybe that's because everyone reaches the late game so quickly. In my opinion, the game could learn a thing or two from the Long Dark, and how it almost blurs the lines between the early and late game, instead crafting an experience that is constantly challenging, yet rewarding. Any suggestions I've made here can be improved and expanded upon, and it really only scratches the surface of what a potential difficult survival experience in Minecraft would look like. It's not perfect, but hey, it's just an idea.